Hi teachers, this is Unit 2, Week 4, Day 5 of the Middle School Standalone ENL curriculum. This is Week 4, the Confino family, Day 5. All right, so the essential question for this week is how are personal experiences shaped by surroundings? This lesson works towards the personal narrative for the Your Story, Our Story project. Today's lesson objectives are to use words and phrases appropriate to the task, aiding comprehension, and to convey ideas and information clearly and effectively. This slide goes over the lesson objectives from the previous week, so lessons 4.1 to 4.4. The texts are all linked right here, as well as links to the academic vocabulary right here if the students need definitions. The most important objectives come right here. So analyzing how specific word choices impact tone and meaning, and identifying how details contribute to the central idea of a text. So students will be writing their own text in this lesson, and we will talk a little bit more about that in a couple of slides. All right, the first thing your students will do is sort of the same do now, activate your brain routine that they have done in previous lessons. So a C, this time remember and wonder. So activating prior knowledge on what has been done in past weeks. So using the images here as well as knowledge from past weeks of what they can connect to. This can be done on a Google Slides. It can be done on a Google Doc. This can be done on a Padlet or a Nearpod Collaborate board, a Pear Deck, whatever technology you have been using in your classroom with your students. All of those things would work here just to give some collaboration to the students so they can learn from each other, so they can hear from each other. All of those things would be very helpful, especially for this lesson where they will break off into more independent work for the majority of the lesson in writing their pieces. So next, students will see a model. So this comes from the Tenement Museum's Your Story, Our Story project link site. Project site. So you can click here if you do not want this specific model, but this model here talks about another student who has done the same project. So this is their work. And you can see some things here. For this week's component, you'll be working on writing your own story. This is the author. This is their object. This is their family. So you can definitely take this is an exercise in multiple modality work if you would like students to read this out loud or pick it apart to understand the components. Definitely a lot you could do with this, especially looking back to the week's objectives. So how did the word choice affect the tone? What was the main idea of this writing piece? And then segue that into the students creating their own writing piece. So some possible scaffolds for this lesson. This is an outline. So students can use this outline if they are, if you feel that they are ready for that, if they're at that level, if they can use this level of direction. This is another example here. This is more close. So this probably entering emerging students, transitioning and above, you might take them to a little bit higher of a task, a more rigorous task. And then these wonderful connect to the text questions that you guys have seen all week are back. So I want to especially draw your attention to this one. How have you been impacted by your new surroundings in New York City? If your students are still having trouble figuring out what to write about or figuring out how they can share their story, this question is a great place to start. So this, once again, if you wanted to extend the do now, this could be something that you did on a Padlet, something that you did on a Nearpod Collaborate board, on a collaborative Google Slides presentation, a Pear Deck, whatever technology you currently use in your class. A Jamboard is another option. If your school uses Google Meet, you can produce that Jamboard directly from the call. So something to sort of activate their brains, get them ready to begin working. Last thing, in the student-facing slides on Teach Hub, there is a slide for students to start their writing here. So if you feel that students are ready to write with that level of direction, like the slides right here, or if you wanted to add extra slides to break it down even more, your students could write straight on this slide. But there's definitely lots of options for how you can break this down for your students so they are prepared for week 5. So in week 5, students will submit the Your Story, Our Story project. This is one component of that project, and there are a few more. You might have looked at, you might have noticed some of them in the previous weeks. So just to recap, we start with the essential question, so definitely make sure to connect the essential question with your students. Follow that up with the lesson objectives, going over the lesson objectives from the week, reiterating that the texts are right here for the students to see, as well as the academic vocabulary. A pre-lesson activate your brain to think about what has been done in past weeks, what they have learned, what they are bringing with them to this lesson. Looking through the model, so looking at what another student has done as a model for what they are about to do. Once again, there are other models available here on the Tenement Museum's website if you would like to choose a second one, a different one, anything that works best for your class. And finally, they will start their writing. So scaffolded in whatever way is most appropriate for the levels of your learners. Entering emerging, you can do something more like this. Transitioning and above, you can probably give your students a little bit more freedom to go off on their own. All right, so that's it. I hope that your students produce some wonderful stories, and best of luck.